Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial video. Last tutorial, we took a look at HTML and how we can use it to define elements on a web page. We took a look at some of the basic tags and some of the properties and attributes that went with those tags. One of the attributes we looked at was the style attribute, and if you recall, that was a way for us to add some styles to each tag. So today we're going to look at CSS, and CSS will allow us to expand upon that. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Style Sheets because it is what allows us to style our website, and cascading because, as you will soon see, it allows us to sort of cascade throughout the entire website. So we define a style at the top and it will go to each of the elements. Alright guys, so this is where we left off in the last video. We have our index.html page here with the basic tags to create a standard website. Over here we have our live server. You can see we have the Hello World title up here. And currently we just have a blank page. So there are three ways to add HTML to our page. The first way we saw last video with the style attribute. So just a quick recap. We have a p tag with some text. You recall we can use the style tag and we can change a lot of properties. So we can change the color to blue, or we can do the font size to maybe 30 pixels. And that's a great way to apply styles. Now the second way is by using a specific tag called the style tag. So for that, we can add it right above the body tag, and there we go, style. And we can put any CSS we want inside this tag. Now these two ways are good, but they both have their drawbacks. For example, using the style attribute, what if we want to have 10 different styles to an element? That'll get a little hard to read. Similarly, if we use the style tag, if we have 50 lines of CSS, do we really want that in our HTML file? Again, it can get hard to read, hard to debug. So the last way to add CSS to a website is to use an external file. That's the most standard and best practice way to do it. So for that, all we're going to do is create a file just like the HTML file. We're going to name the style, which is convention, and then dot. Instead of HTML, we're just going to use CSS. And this is our CSS file. So we can start putting styles in here, but we have to link it to this index.html page somehow. And the way we're going to do that is up here in the head tag. We're going to go to new line, and we're going to use the link tag. And you'll see this autocompletes for me, rel style sheet. That's telling the file that we're linking to a CSS style sheet. And then the href is where we want to find it. It's at the same level as index.html. So we can do ./style.css. And that links the two together. Okay, so now let's look at the syntax for CSS. So every CSS statement will start with a selector. And this will be, it could be the tag name, such as P or H1. It could be the class name, which we'll go over later, or it could be the ID, which we'll also go over later. That is followed with parentheses, just like that. And then inside here is where all the styles are. And we can have many lines of styles. So for each style, we have the property. The property could be color or font style, font weight, font size, that kind of stuff, colon. And then it has the value. So if the property were color, the value could be blue. And after that, we have a semicolon to signify that that expression is done. And then, like I mentioned, you could have a bunch of properties and values just like that, as much as you want. All right, so let's use that syntax to style our first tag. So over here in the index.html, I'm going to add an h1 tag. And then the text will be style me. All right, so over here in our style.css, we can grab that h1 tag using the selector h1, our braces. And then first, let's change the color of this. So for our property will be color, colon, and the value can be red, and with a semicolon here. And reopen a live server. There we go. And here we go. Here we have our style me in red text. We can also add another property and value if we want, such as font size. Make that 20 pixels. There you go, I made it a little smaller. So that's the first way. The second way is by what's called a class. So if we go back over here, we'll get another h1, and we'll name this style me 2. Now at first, this will have all the same styles as every other h1 on the page. This h1 is applied to both of these, and that's where the cascading comes in from cascading style sheets. You define it once, and it goes to both of them. Now, if we were using the style tag, we would have had to individually put that for both of these tags. So that's one of the main advantages of CSS and why it's so powerful. But say we wanted to just style this one separately from this h1. Well, to do that, we could use a class. And that is an attribute. There we go. And we can give it whatever name we want. So in this case, let's say title. So now back in our CSS file, we can call that by using dot title. Again with the braces. So this dot title is the selector. So that's calling this class right here. And if we, now let's say we want to style the color to be blue instead of red. There you go. It changes to blue. So now we have this h1 style applied to every h1, but this h1 has class title, which has a color of blue. So that's class. Now let's take a look at ID. In the HTML file, we're going to declare another h1. And instead of class, we can write ID. Now we can give this another name. We'll name this one 3 for heading 3. Now, class and ID are similar in the fact that they identify an element. Now they are different because class can be added to as many elements as you want. So you can do this. You can copy this and have 4 different elements, all with class title. Now ID can only be applied to one element. So you can only have one tag that has ID 3. Now to style the ID, similar to class, except we're going to use a hashtag or a number sign instead of the dot. And then the name, braces, and there you go. Now we can add whatever styles we want here. So you can see the color of it is red because the default is the H1 styles. But let's change that to yellow. And there we go. A little hard to see, but we can see that it is now indeed yellow. So those are the 3 ways to select an element from the HTML. So next I'm going to go over some basic CSS properties that you're going to come across quite often. Okay, so over here I just declared 10 p tags with the same text, style me please, and I gave them each a class, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. And you can see we have that displayed in HTML here. So this is just the basic p tag with no styling. We're going to make these look a little nicer while going over some of the common styles. Okay, so the first style we're going to look at is background color. So this we're not actually going to apply to a p tag, we're going to apply it to the body tag. So for that, we're going to call the body tag and write background color. And this will change the background color of the entire page. So let's make that light gray. And there you go. Change the background color to light gray. Okay, now let's grab our first tag. So the first common CSS style that we're going to go over is color. Now I know we've seen this one already, but I want to go over it and look at some of the different ways that we can actually, so far all we've been doing is writing out the color name. So we've been writing out red or blue or whatever, and that works, but we're kind of limited to a couple different colors. But if you'll notice, if I hover over this in Visual Studio Code, you have this box that pops up. And I can drag and pick from any one of these colors. And up here, we have this called RGB. If I click on it, it changes to what's called hex. And there's a couple other ones. Oh, only one more, it looks like. HSL. And these are ways to specify what color you want. And you can get very precise, as you can see. There are a lot of different fonts. So say we want red, maybe like a lighter red, closer to pink. We can do that like that. If we want to change that to RGB, there you go. That's how you specify in this. And if you're not in Visual Studio Code, you can search up color picker. And right from Google, you have the same thing. You can slide here to choose which shade you want, and then you can move it up here. This is the color that you're getting. And then down here you have all your values. So as we saw, we have hex and RGB, which are the 2 most common ones. Then you have some other ones down here if you'd like. So the second common tag is text align. Again, we've seen this one already, and this is used to align text. So the default is left. So if I do that, it won't change anything. But if I change it to center, you'll see the second P moves to the center of the page. You can also do right, style it over here on the right. And as you saw, there are a couple more options. We have center, we have end, which aligns the content to the end edge of the line box. Justify, which can be used with the text justify property. And some other ones here, start, initial, and a lot of these are used and are useful when you have paragraphs of text. If you want to kind of have a newspaper feel in that case. So these won't do much with just 3 words.